My sister stole my identity to open dozens of credit cards and ruined my life before it even started, and now my parents are threatening to disown me for reporting her. Some stories don't make sense right away. At first, everything felt ordinary, almost forgettable. But as time passed, certain moments started to stand out, and I realized there was more going on than I wanted to admit. This is one of those stories that slowly unfolds, piece by piece. The day I was supposed to start my life was the day I realized it had already been trashed. I was 23, fresh out of college, and I had just landed my dream job as a junior graphic designer in the city. I'd found the perfect studio apartment, a little place with big windows and a brick wall that I could already see my plants hanging from. I had the deposit ready, the references checked, and my bags half packed in my parents' basement. Then I got the call from the property manager. "Maya, I'm sorry," he said, his voice sounding more annoyed than sympathetic. "We can't move forward with your application. Your credit score is, well, it's in the basement. We require a minimum of 680, and yours is barely breaking 400. I laughed. It was a genuine, confused laugh. There must be a mistake. I've never even had a credit card. I worked through school to pay for my car in cash. I don't owe anyone a dime. Tell that to the 3 collection agencies and the 2 maxed out store cards," he replied. "You might want to check your report, kid. You've been busy since you turned 18. I hung up, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I pulled up a free credit report site, my fingers trembling so hard I could barely type my social security number. When the screen loaded, the room felt like it was spinning. There were pages of it: an apartment lease in a city I'd never lived in, a car loan for a vehicle I didn't own, utility bills, credit cards, and a series of payday loans that had all gone to collections. Someone had been living a second life using my name for 5 years. I sat there in the quiet of my parents' house, the realization sinking in like cold lead. Whoever did this had my social security number. They knew my mother's maiden name. They knew my childhood addresses. This wasn't a random hacker in a dark room halfway across the world. This was someone who had been inside my house. I looked up at the sound of the front door opening. My older sister Sarah walked in, balancing a designer shopping bag and a latte. Sarah was 27, between jobs again, and always seemed to have new clothes despite never having a steady paycheck. She'd always been the messy one of the family, the one our parents constantly bailed out. "Hey Maya, why the long face?" she chirped, tossing her keys on the counter, the keys to a car I now recognized from my credit report. I turned the laptop screen toward her. I didn't say a word. I just watched her face. The color drained from her cheeks in a way that was almost cinematic. She didn't act confused. She didn't ask what it was. She just dropped her latte. The plastic cup hit the linoleum with a dull thud, splashing brown liquid across her expensive boots. "Maya, I can explain," she whispered, her voice cracking. "You stole my life, Sarah," I said, my voice eerily calm, even as I felt like I was dying inside. "You used my social security number the second I turned 18. Why? I was in trouble. I had no credit, no one would help me, and I just needed a start." She started to wail, the tears coming on cue. She was always good at crying when she got caught. "I was going to pay it back. I was going to fix it before you ever found out. You've had 5 years. I screamed, the calm finally snapping. "I just lost my apartment. I can't get a phone plan. I can't even get a credit card to buy groceries if I wanted to. You've ruined me." Our mother rushed into the kitchen, alerted by the shouting. She looked from the spilled coffee to Sarah's sobbing face, and then to me. Her first instinct wasn't to ask what happened. It was to pull Sarah into a hug. "What did you do to your sister?" my mom demanded, glaring at me. "What did I do?" I held up the laptop. "She stole my identity, Mom. She's been using my name to fund her life for 5 years. She's thousands of dollars in debt in my name." My mother went quiet. She didn't look shocked. She looked guilty. She looked away, her hand stroking Sarah's hair. "Maya, don't be dramatic." We knew she was struggling. She just needed a little help to get on her feet. It's family. We're supposed to help each other. The air left my lungs. "You knew? You knew she was doing this and you didn't tell me?" "We thought she'd pay it off," Mom snapped. "Now stop yelling. We'll figure it out. We'll pay it back slowly." Slowly? I felt a cold, hard resolve settle in my chest. "I'm calling the police. I'm filing a report for identity theft. It's the only way to clear my name and get these debts off my record." Sarah let out a shriek, and my mother's face turned into a mask of pure rage. "You will do no such thing. If you report this, your sister will go to jail. Do you want to be the reason your sister is a felon? Do you want to destroy this family over a few $1,000s?" I looked at the two of them, the thief and the enabler. They weren't my family anymore. They were the people who had set my future on fire to keep themselves warm. "I'm not the one who destroyed this family," I said, reaching for my phone. Sarah did that when she typed in my social security number. The tension in the kitchen was thick enough to choke on. My mother stood like a shield in front of Sarah, who was currently curled into a ball on the floor, sobbing about how her anxiety made her make bad decisions. It was a performance I had seen 1,000 times, but this time, the stakes weren't a broken vase or a missed curfew. This was my entire future. "Put the phone down, Maya," my mother commanded, her voice dropping to a low, dangerous hiss. "I mean it. If you call the police, you are dead to this family. You will be homeless, penniless, and alone. Is that what you want?" "I'm already penniless, Mom," I yelled back, gesturing wildly at the laptop. "I can't even rent a room in a basement because of her. I have collection agencies calling me 3 times a day for a car I've never driven. How can you stand there and defend her? Because she's your sister, Mom screamed back. And sisters don't put each other in cages. I looked at Sarah. Through her fake tears, she caught my eye for a split second. There was no remorse there. There was only a calculated, cold flicker of triumph because she knew Mom was on her side. She had always been the fragile one, the one who needed protection. I was the strong one, which apparently meant I was the one who was supposed to take the hits. I didn't call the police right then, not because I was scared of my mother's threat, but because I realized I was outnumbered and I needed to be smart. If I called from the kitchen, they would try to grab the phone. They might even try to delete the evidence on my laptop. I needed to get out. Fine, I said, my voice shaking. I'm going for a drive. I need to clear my head. Good, Mom said, relaxing her shoulders. Go. Realize that family is more important than a credit score. We'll talk about a payment plan when you get back. I'll even help Sarah give you $50 a week. $50 a week. At that rate, it would take 15 years to pay off the debt Sarah had accrued. It wouldn't even cover the interest. I grabbed my keys and my laptop, ignoring Sarah's pathetic "I'm sorry" as I walked out the door. I didn't go for a drive. I drove straight to the public library, found a quiet corner, and started downloading every single bit of evidence I could find. I pulled my full credit report from all 3 bureaus. I looked at the addresses. One was an apartment Sarah had lived in 2 years ago, the one she told us she was house-sitting for a friend. The car loan was for a silver sedan she claimed she bought with a small inheritance from our great-aunt, which I now realized was a complete lie. Every piece of her life was built on a foundation of my identity. As I sat there, my phone started blowing up. It wasn't just my mom. It was my dad. Maya, your mother told me what's happening. Don't be rash. We can fix this internally. If you report her, she loses her job at the daycare. You want to take that away from her? Be the bigger person. The bigger person. The phrase was like acid in my ears. Why was it always the victim's job to be the bigger person so the predator could keep being a predator? I sent a text back to the family group chat. I'm at the library. I have a list of 14 fraudulent accounts. Total debt is $22,400. If Sarah signs a notarized confession and agrees to take over the debt legally by Friday, I won't go to the police. The response was immediate. My mother called me, screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. A notarized confession? You want to hold a gun to your sister's head? She's terrified, Maya. She's having a panic attack because of you. She should be terrified, I said. She's a criminal. If you do this, my mother said, her voice turning ice cold, don't bother coming home. Your father and I have already decided. We will support Sarah. We will testify that we gave her permission to use your info because you were unstable. We will make you look like the liar. I felt the blood drain from my face. My own parents were willing to commit perjury to protect the sister who had robbed me. They weren't just enablers, they were co-conspirators now. I looked at the silver key on my keychain, the key to my parents' house. I realized I couldn't go back. Not tonight, maybe not ever. I had $300 in my checking account and a car that was actually mine because I'd paid cash. My clothes, my childhood photos, my degree, everything was in that house. But if I went back, they would corner me. They would take my laptop. They would gaslight me until I gave in. I sat in my car in the library parking lot and cried. Not the performative, loud sobs of my sister, but the quiet, shaking tears of someone who had just realized they were an orphan while their parents were still alive. I was 23 years old, and I was being hunted by my own blood. I opened my laptop again. I remembered a friend from college, Leo, whose dad was a retired detective. I messaged him, my hands trembling. Leo, I'm in trouble. My sister stole my identity, and my parents are threatening to lie to the police to protect her. I have all the documents. What do I do? Leo's reply came 5 minutes later. Get out of the house. Don't tell them where you are. My dad says if they lie to protect her, that's obstruction. Do not talk to them anymore. Record everything. I took a deep breath. I blocked my mother. I blocked my father. I blocked Sarah. Then, I drove to the one place I knew Sarah would never think to look for me, my grandmother's old house, which had been sitting empty for months while it was being prepared for sale. My parents had the key, but I knew where the spare was hidden under a loose stone in the garden. As I pulled into the dark driveway, I saw a police cruiser go past. For a second, my heart leaped. Had they called the police on me? Had they twisted the story already? I realized then that this wasn't just a family argument, this was a war. And if I didn't strike first, I was going to be the one ending up in a cage. I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recorder app just in case they showed up. I was done being the bigger person. I was ready to be the person who survived. The air inside my grandmother's empty house was cold and smelled of lemon wax and forgotten memories. I sat on the floor of the living room, the only light coming from the blue glow of my laptop screen. My phone was still buzzing intermittently in my pocket, notifications from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Apparently, the family grapevine was working overtime. My Aunt Janice messaged me, Maya, how could you be so cruel? Sarah is in the hospital with a nervous breakdown because of your threats. Think about what you're doing to your mother's heart. I deleted the message. Then I blocked Janice. The nervous breakdown was Sarah's favorite weapon. Every time she got caught in a lie, she checked herself into a clinic for exhaustion or stress. It was a shield that made it impossible to hold her accountable. If you got mad at her, you were triggering her. If you demanded your money back, you were insensitive to her mental health. But this time I had the paper trail. I spent the entire night organizing the files. I created a spreadsheet of every fraudulent charge. A $200 for a designer sofa delivered to Sarah's old apartment. $4,000 in quick cash loans with 300% interest rates. A $500 charge at a high-end spa on my 21st birthday, the day she told me she couldn't afford to buy me a cupcake. Every line item felt like a slap in the face. While I was skipping meals in college to save for my future, she was literally spending my future on facials and furniture. Around 3 a.m., my father's name flashed on the screen. He hadn't texted, he'd sent an email. Maya, it read, we've consulted a friend who is an attorney. If you file that report, we will produce a signed document stating that we, as your legal guardians at the time some of these accounts were opened, authorized Sarah to help you manage your finances. We will say you had a shopping addiction and asked her to take over. Don't test us. We are trying to save this family. Come home, delete the files, and we can forget this happened. We'll give you $2,000 to help with your apartment deposit. I stared at the screen, a dry, hysterical laugh escaping my throat. $2,000. They were trying to buy my silence for less than 10% of what was stolen. And the threat? It was sickening. They were willing to brand me as unstable and a shopaholic just to keep Sarah out of a courtroom. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded that email to my own personal backup drive. It was evidence of witness tampering and a conspiracy to commit fraud. My father, the man who taught me how to ride a bike and told me never to tell a lie, had just handed me the rope to hang his own reputation. The next morning, I drove to the local police station. My eyes were bloodshot, and my skin felt tight from lack of sleep, but my mind was clearer than it had ever been. I walked up to the glass partition and took a deep breath. I'd like to file a report for identity theft, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. The suspect is my sister, and I have evidence of my parents attempting to obstruct the investigation. The officer behind the desk, a woman with graying hair and a no-nonsense expression, looked up from her computer. Step over here, please. I spent 4 hours in a small windowless room with Detective Miller. I showed him the credit reports. I showed him the addresses. I showed him the email from my father. I watched his face as he scrolled through the messages from my mother. This is extensive, Miller said, rubbing his chin. Usually, identity theft is a stranger. When it's family, it's much harder for the victim to follow through. Are you sure you want to press charges, Maya? Once this ball starts rolling, I can't stop it. Your sister could be looking at significant prison time given the dollar amount. She didn't just steal money, Detective, I said, leaning forward. She stole my ability to live. She stole my reputation. And my parents are helping her do it. If I don't stop this now, she'll do it to someone else. Or she'll keep doing it to me until I have nothing left. Miller nodded slowly. The email from your father is particularly troublesome for them. That's a direct threat to provide false testimony. I'm going to start the paperwork. We'll need to verify these signatures with the bank and the loan companies. As I walked out of the station, I felt a weight lift, but it was immediately replaced by a crushing sense of dread. I knew what was coming next. The family would react like a wounded animal. I went to a nearby coffee shop, used their Wi-Fi, and did something I never thought I'd do. I went on the local community Facebook group and the Family Secrets subreddit. Didn't use real names, but I laid out the story. I needed a record of the truth to exist somewhere in public before my parents could start their smear campaign. Within an hour, the post had hundreds of comments. Most were supportive, but then I saw a comment that made my heart stop. User 4492. I know who this is. Maya is a known liar. She's been struggling with drug issues for years and her family has been covering for her. This is just her way of getting back at them because they cut her off. The profile had no picture, but the phrasing, struggling with issues, was exactly how my mother talked. They were already starting. They weren't waiting for the police. They were going for my throat in the court of public opinion. I looked at the silver key to my grandmother's house in my hand. I realized I wasn't safe there. If they knew I had the key, they would come for me. I packed my laptop and headed to a cheap motel 2 towns over, paying in cash. The only thing I had that didn't have my name attached to a fraudulent account. Just as I checked into the room, my phone buzzed. It was a restricted number. Hello, I answered. Maya. It was Sarah. She wasn't crying anymore. Her voice was flat, cold, and venomous. You think you're so smart, but you forgot one thing. I have the login to your old college email. I've seen what you wrote about your professors. I've seen the projects you helped other students with for money. If I go down, I'm taking your degree and your new job with me. Withdraw the report or I hit send to your boss and the dean. She hung up before I could respond. I sat on the edge of the stained motel bed, the silence of the room ringing in my ears. She was trying to blackmail me. My own sister was willing to destroy my hard-earned career just to avoid the consequences of her own theft. I looked at my phone, then at the folder of evidence. I had 2 choices: retreat and live in the shadows of her crimes forever, or go nuclear. The motel room felt like it was closing in on me. The air was thick with the scent of stale cigarettes and the hum of a flickering neon sign outside. Sarah's voice, that cold, calculating tone she only used when she thought she'd won, echoed in my head. She was threatening to leak old emails to my new boss in my university. In college, I'd been desperate to make ends meet while she was spending my credit. I'd occasionally tutored students a little too much, essentially polishing their essays for extra cash. It wasn't exactly a crime, but in the corporate world and academia, academic dishonesty was a death sentence. But Sarah had made one fatal mistake. She thought I was still the scared little sister who played by the rules. She forgot that she was the one who had taught me exactly how far someone can go when they stop caring about being good. I didn't call her back. I didn't beg. Instead, I opened my laptop and went to work. If she wanted to play with digital footprints, we could play. I remembered that Sarah used the same password for almost everything. Our childhood dog's name followed by her birth year. I tried it on her old cloud storage account. On the third try, I was in. I wasn't looking for her photos or her messages. I was looking for the paper trail of the car insurance. There it was. A PDF of an insurance claim from 6 months ago. Sarah had gotten into a minor fender bender in the silver sedan, the one in my name. To avoid me finding out, she'd filed the claim using a fake email address but had signed my name on the digital forms. But here was the kicker. The dash cam footage she'd uploaded to prove she wasn't at fault showed her clearly behind the wheel, laughing with a friend about how Maya's credit score is the gift that keeps on giving. She had literally recorded herself admitting to the fraud. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. It was adrenaline. I spent the next 4 hours compiling every piece of blackmail she'd just handed me. I didn't stop at the insurance. I found her side hustle ledgers. It turned out Sarah had been selling designer bags online. Bags she bought with my credit cards and then claimed were lost in the mail to get refunds from the retailers. It was mail fraud on top of identity theft. Just as the sun began to peek through the grime of the motel curtains, my phone rang. It was my father. His voice sounded tired, stripped of the bravado he'd had in his email. "Maya," he said softly, "the police were at the house this morning. They served a search warrant for Sarah's laptop and her financial records. Your mother she's inconsolable. She's destroyed. Why are you doing this to us?" "I'm not doing this to you, Dad," I said, my voice like flint. "I'm doing this for me." "Did you know she was blackmailing me? Did you know she threatened to ruin my degree?" There was a long silence on the other end. "She's just scared, Maya. She doesn't mean it. She does mean it, and so do I. Listen to me very carefully, Dad. If you or Mom provide that false statement to the police, the one where you say you authorized her to use my ID, I will hand over the email you sent me to Detective Miller. That's a felony. Do you really want to go to prison alongside her?" I heard a sharp intake of breath. He knew I wasn't bluffing. "I've spent 23 years being the daughter you could rely on," I continued, tears finally stinging my eyes. "The one who didn't cause trouble, the one who stayed quiet while you pampered the difficult child. That version of Maya is dead. You killed her when you chose a thief over your own daughter." "Maya, please." "No. Tell Sarah that if she sends a single email to my boss or my school, I will release the dash cam footage of her admitting to the fraud. I will also send the evidence of her mail fraud to the Postal Inspection Service. They don't play around, Dad. That's federal." I hung up before he could reply. I felt a strange, hollow coldness. I had just threatened my father with prison. I had just declared war on the only family I had. An hour later, I received a text from a new number. It was Sarah. No emojis, no fake tears. Just, "I haven't sent anything. I won't. Just stop the police." I looked at the text and felt a grim sense of satisfaction. She thought she could still bargain. She didn't realize that the police weren't a faucet I could just turn off. The state of California versus Sarah Jenkins was moving forward, and I was just the star witness. I checked out of the motel and drove back toward the city. I didn't go to my grandmother's. I went to a small, cheap Airbnb I'd booked under a friend's name. I needed to stay hidden for a few more days. As I drove, I saw a notification on my phone. My mother had posted on Facebook. It was a picture of us 3 when we were kids, at the beach. The caption read, "Sometimes the people you love the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. Praying for my family to find their way back to the truth. Brokenhearted to family first." The comments were filled with neighbors and church friends offering prayers for the wayward daughter. They were painting me as the villain of a story they didn't understand. My mother was choosing the image of a happy family over the reality of a broken one. I reached the Airbnb and sat on the porch watching the sunset. My life as I knew it was over. I had no family to go home to for Thanksgiving. I had a credit score that was still a disaster. I had a legal battle ahead of me that would take months, if not years, to resolve. But for the first time in 5 years, nobody was spending my name. Nobody was living my life but me. Then my phone buzzed with an email. It was from the HR department of my new job. My heart stopped. Had she done it? Had she sent the emails despite my threat? I opened it with trembling fingers. Subject urgent, background check discrepancy. Dear Maya, we were alerted by our screening partner about some significant issues with your credit history and some flagged collection accounts. We need to discuss this immediately. I closed my eyes. The war wasn't over. It was just moving to a new front. The email from HR felt like a death warrant. I sat on the porch of the Airbnb, the cold evening air biting at my skin, staring at the words, background check discrepancy. My sister hadn't even needed to send a blackmail email. Her past actions were ghosts that had finally caught up to my future. I knew I couldn't hide anymore. I called the HR manager, a woman named Mrs. Gable, first thing Monday morning. My voice was steady, though my heart was a frantic bird against my ribs. "Mrs. Gable, I received your email," I said. "Before we discuss the report, I want to send you a file. It's a police case number and a sworn affidavit. I am a victim of aggravated identity theft, and the perpetrator is a family member who is currently under active investigation." There was a long silence on the other end. "That's a very serious claim, Maya." "I have the documentation to prove it," I replied. "I'm not asking for pity. I'm asking for the chance to show you that the person represented on that credit report isn't the person you hired." I sent over everything: the police report, the screenshots of the fraudulent accounts, and even a letter from Detective Miller confirming the investigation. 2 hours later, I got a call back. They weren't revoking the offer. They were putting me on a probationary status while the legalities were cleared, but the job was still mine. I had won the first battle. The second battle was much uglier. 2 weeks later, the police moved in. Because I had provided evidence of mail fraud and the recorded confession from the dashcam, the internal family matter my parents tried to hide became a criminal reality. Sarah was arrested at my parents' house. My mother sent me a video, not of the arrest, but of herself crying in Sarah's empty bedroom, screaming that I was a monster and a traitor. The family was now a war zone. My parents spent their savings on a high-powered defense attorney for Sarah. They stopped paying their mortgage to afford his retainer. They sold the very heirlooms they had accused me of not valuing just to keep Sarah out of a jumpsuit. I was officially disowned. My father sent a final text. "You got what you wanted. You're alone. Hope your credit score keeps you warm at night." The trial took 6 months. I had to stand in a courtroom, 10 feet away from my sister, and testify. She didn't look like the glamorous influencer she pretended to be on Instagram. She looked small, haggard, and spiteful. My mother sat behind her, glaring at me with a hatred that felt like a physical weight, but the evidence was undeniable. The prosecution presented the logs, the signatures, and the dashcam footage. When the judge read the verdict, guilty on 3 counts of identity theft and 1 count of mail fraud, Sarah finally broke. She didn't cry for me. She cried for herself as the bailiff led her away to serve her 18-month sentence. As I walked out of the courthouse, my mother intercepted me on the steps. "Are you happy now?" she hissed, her face inches from mine. "Your sister is going to prison. Your father and I are losing the house because of the legal fees. You've destroyed everything." I looked at her, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to apologize. I didn't feel the crushing guilt that had defined my childhood. "No, Mom," I said quietly. "I didn't destroy this family. You did by deciding that Sarah's lies were more important than my life. You had a choice to be a parent to both of us. You chose to be an accomplice to one of us. I'm not a traitor. I'm just the only one who stopped lying." I walked down the steps and didn't look back. It's been a year since that day. My credit score is finally climbing back into the 700s. It took hundreds of hours on the phone with banks, dozens of fraud affidavits, and a mountain of paperwork, but the red ink is fading. I'm officially Maya again, and only Maya. I live in that studio apartment with the big windows. My plants are thriving. I have a cat named Justice who sleeps on my feet. I don't speak to my parents. I heard through a cousin that they've moved into a small apartment and are bitter about the way things turned out, still blaming me for their downfall. Sometimes late at night, I wonder if I should have been the bigger person. I wonder if a family, no matter how toxic, is better than no family at all. But then I look at my life, a life I actually own, a name that belongs only to me, and a future that isn't being auctioned off one credit card at a time. I realize that being the bigger person is often just a trap used by people who want to keep hurting you without consequences. Real growth isn't about silent endurance. It's about setting the boundaries that keep you alive. I'm Maya, I'm 24. I'm a designer. And for the first time in my life, I am completely, beautifully free. After laying everything out, I still don't have all the answers. What I do know is that this experience changed the way I look at people and the choices they make. Maybe it'll make you think a little differently too.